My name is Maria Costa and I am head of Green Finance Solutions, which essentially means that I work across the entirety of the bank. So retail, which is all of your customers, your people, and then commercial and corporate banking, so your SMEs and your big corporations. And we look at identifying what kind of solutions, whether that is financial products or non-financial products, that we should be building and we should be getting in front of our customers to help them through the transition. So how can we make them easier to live a more sustainable life, essentially?
I'm Olly Breen, so I'm a senior manager looking after Santander's climate strategy in the UK. So covering everything from work with Maria on how we're going to help our clients to transition to net zero, all the way through to our supply chain, our own operations, so the full remit of how Santander is going to become a more sustainable bank.
I've had a very squiggly career. I actually ended up in sustainability completely by chance. I was initially working as part of the innovation team within the bank, and I was very curious to bring new ideas and things that I thought would be of interest to the team. And we had a talk from someone in the banking industry that is an eminence in green finance and everything. And the boss found it really interesting and essentially said, Maria, here you go and find out a bit more about what does green finance and sustainability mean for us as a bank. And importantly, do we have a role to play in? And I became really curious and started to do more research and eventually upskill myself. So I got a certification on sustainability. And from then I did innovation and sustainability. And then I moved into doing sustainability within wealth. So all about investments. And then eventually landed where I am, which is across the entirety of the bank, looking more holistically about propositions. So
Very, very similar to Maria, never intended to work in sustainability. I spent 15 years working in risk management in banks, so credit risk, operational risk, very much looking at much more of the mathematical quantitative side of things. And then in 2019, when the regulator started to look at climate change for banks, it started with some stress testing activity, looking out into the future and how safe banks would be. And they needed people with a risk background, so I got brought in on a project basis to work on the very first climate risk stress test for my employer at the time. And loved the challenge of it. I've always, in my career, looked to try and work in areas where people don't know the answer and where there isn't really a BAU. And so that's how I started in sustainability. Being involved in the risk side was excellent, but what really excited me was the more strategic side. How can we actually make a difference to our customers? And so I've evolved as I've done that into moving slightly away from risk and much more into a strategic role that I'm in at the moment. I think the biggest challenge, two big challenges we have for sustainability at the moment. One is, how do we make it make business sense? So it's a very clear argument for why it's the right thing to do. But obviously, if you want investment in a bank, if you want to be able to make progress, you have to also be able to make the business case for it. And that's a constant challenge on how can we not only do the right thing, but do it in a way that is profitable and sustainable for Santander. I think the other challenge, very different, is data and analysis and being able to do that. To make that business case, you need to be able to put robust analysis together. You need to be able to explain to the business the benefits or the risks they might have for changing the direction they're taking. And that's a massive challenge, trying to get your hands on the data, trying to use it in a way that banks have never used it before, and then trying to get people to understand the results that come out of it. So two very different but very real challenges.
people want to do good. Everybody wants to do the right thing. But then how do you actually make that happen when you don't really understand the changes that you need to do? You don't really understand as a customer or as an individual, how does that apply to me? What does it mean to be more sustainable in my daily life as a customer, as an individual? And in a company, if you think about it, they're really focused on growing their business. That's what they want, to make sure that they can pay their employees, that they can grow the business, that they can be sustainable in time. And sometimes it feels that sustainability is that extra layer of complication. And it shouldn't be that way. And I think part of what we want to do, even though we as a bank, is how do we start to show people that you can start to make really small changes and incorporate them into your day-to-day life, into your day-to-day operations if you're a company, so that you can take those necessary steps to become more sustainable, more resilient. But it starts by removing all of this jargon and making it about what does it mean for me, and what are the things that I can start to do today, tomorrow, that will make it sustainable in time.
When we think about how do we make the business case for it, and it's massively entwined with the work Maria is doing.
Yeah.
It's how can we do the research, and we've done a number of studies on what's stopping people, where are the barriers, where are the pain points, and we've really identified that piece around knowledge, that piece around disruption, that piece around cost. And so then we've looked at what are the partnerships, how can we unblock some of those, and so you'll have seen Santander over the last 18 months has tried a number of partnerships addressing some of those areas to see can we make a difference. And I think the really interesting thing there is we also have ongoing discussion with government, and being able to share with government the findings of that research, to be able to kind of amplify the voice of our customers and be able to say, look, this is what people are finding difficult, has been really helpful, and we're talking to government about the sort of policy interventions that might be useful for our customers, that might help them make that shift to a greener economy. So I think they're the real big things from our side, and one of the things we're really keen to test, and it's really relevant to Milton Keynes, is we've tried big national campaigns. We're now looking at can we try some really localised things to say can we make a difference in one area, and what's the model for that, and how can we bring that value to the Milton Keynes area. And if that works, then we can apply those learnings to other areas within the UK.
I mean, we're working hand in hand. I think that's the thing that we perhaps would like to convey, that even though, so Olly obviously sits within that centralized sustainability function, and my role sits more within the business areas, but we couldn't do the work that we do if we didn't work hand in hand in all of these initiatives and cross-pollinating ideas. I think that's going to be critical for the success of any of the work that we do.
My experience talking to other people that work in sustainability is we've all come from very different backgrounds, whether they're dedicated sustainability professionals or people like Maria and myself that have kind of wandered into it through different paths. I think the biggest skills people can have are those softer, more personal skills. Everything we do is about influencing people, trying to get people on board with what we're wanting to do, and being able to bring the business along with you, to make the case, to get people to want to buy into the agenda. I think that's the biggest skill set that certainly we're using at the moment. The knowledge can be gained, the technical knowledge, you can learn that as you work through it. You can be the best technical specialist in the world. If you can't get people to follow you on that journey, then it makes life very, very difficult.
I'd also say that having curiosity, and I say this because we don't have the answers to almost anything, this is very much a test and learn. We are all learning around sustainability, what works, what doesn't work. So having that curious mindset of wanting to try new things and seeing whether they work, and if they fail, then great, because you've learned that they don't work and you can try to do something different. But that curiosity about continuous learning and not being scared to try something different, I think is really important.